Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up in this program, the rise of the female jihadists. We take a look at what attracts them to the Islamic State group. Also, how an Iraqi politician is literally putting her life on the line as she alerts the world to the plight of Yazidi victims. And how the Hollywood film 50 Shades of Grey is more than whipping up a storm. But first, studies suggest that some 10% of the thousands of foreign recruits who've joined the Islamic State group are indeed women. So how are they targeted by the jihadists and what exactly is their role? Kate Moody takes a look.
Just 15 years old and a target for terrorists. French teenager Leah joined a social networking site last year and says she immediately began receiving messages from jihad groups.
They asked me what I was studying at school. I said I was interested in becoming a nurse because I want to do humanitarian work. And so they started sending me videos, showing what kind of work needs to be done in Syria. Videos of people being gassed by Bashar al-Assad.
As their communication continued, Leah became increasingly isolated.
They told me not to talk to my friends anymore and stop going to school. I stayed at home in my room and I didn't speak to anyone.
Leah says she was ultimately dropped by her recruiters when she missed a scheduled meeting to head to the Syrian front line.
They told me it's over. You can never come here. You'll have to take action in France. It was hard for me to realize that I'd allowed myself to be so indoctrinated.
But an increasing number of women around the world are joining the Islamic State group, often with dreams of marrying a jihad hero or taking up arms themselves.
They feel that they're going and joining a cause and that they'll be able to help in some way, and either within the movement itself or as becoming, wives and mothers to these fighters. And it's an ideological cause that they're going and joining.
While a few have become fighters, most female recruits are expected to play a support role. According to a recent manifesto released by an all-female group affiliated to IS in Iraq and Syria, women are banned from the workplace. They're expected to be educated, but mostly in matters of Islam, and studies should stop by the time they're 15. They can marry as young as 9 years old, 17 at the latest, and then should focus on being homemakers, wives, and mothers. It's a role that experts say many female recruits find disillusioning.
Life out there is being glamorized and it's being sensationalized in order to draw more women there. But we need to keep in mind that women who are going out there are joining a conflict-ridden zone. Rape is prominent. They have no agency whatsoever, and the ideological cause that they've joined is also extremely limited.
But the harsh reality of life under the caliphate has yet to stop the flow of foreign recruits, both male and female.
And as we saw in that report, Islamic State jihadists have horrified the world over their treatment of women. An Iraqi politician has now made it her life mission to free both girls and women being held by the Sunni extremists. I'm talking about Vian Dakhil. You may have seen these images of her making an emotional speech in the Iraqi parliament last year. The 43-year-old is from Iraq's Yazidi minority, a population the Islamic State group has been particularly brutal towards. Abigail Haworth, a journalist with Marie Claire, has managed to accompany the politician to the front lines, and in partnership with Marie Claire International, she joins me now from Bangkok. Abigail, thanks for being with us. What exactly has Vian Dakhil managed to accomplish so far for the female victims of the Islamic State group?
Well, she's been working on it on multiple fronts. It's very, very hard for her because she's the only active Yazidi member of parliament. There is another Yazidi member, but he doesn't actually take part very much. So she's the only person representing a whole group of 700,000 people, and currently 4,000 women and girls who are still being kept captive by ISIS. She's in contact with a lot of the women who have secret mobile phones, so she's staying in touch. She's telling them that people are still caring about them. She's doing what she can to help facilitate their escape through intermediaries who are helping, some sympathetic people who are inside ISIS territory who are working underground. if there's any possibility, if she finds out the location of the women, if she can find some help to for them to escape, then she will try to arrange that.
Now, Islamic State militants have organised sex slave markets. What are you able to tell us about that?
Yes, well, when they originally attacked the Yazidi minority, it was an orchestrated attempt to kidnap the women. I don't think it was just an opportunist move. They actually brought trucks up when they came. They killed most of the men. They took the women to cities like Mosul and Tel Afar, about 50 miles away from there, and they also took some of them into Syria. And they've basically been trading them like cattle in the markets, so selling them to other commanders, selling them to ordinary businessmen in the cities, selling them as domestic housewives, but housemaids. But a lot of it is for sex slavery, which they have brought back and said is legitimate now in their form of radical Islam.
So, Abigail, for the girls who are actually freed, what are the long-term consequences of their imprisonment likely to be?
Well, I think, the first thing that they have to overcome is this unbelievable trauma. I mean, they have been through such horrific experiences. And Vian has been trying to document those as well. So Vian Dakil has been very active in trying to keep a record of that so we know what's happened to them. And they need serious psychological help and trauma counselling and physical, professional medical help. And long term, they need, their families need education, not to stigmatise them, because although in the Yazidi culture they don't have a tradition of chastising women who've been raped, or there's no honour killing surrounding that or anything like that, but they do have a very, very strong taboo against rape, because they have very rigid ideas about girls should be virgins when they marry. And so, it's going to be very, very difficult for these women to assimilate back into the community, and it's really leaders like Dakil who are trying to ensure that these girls are not stigmatised in any way.
So what precautions does Dakil take for her safety?
Well, she's got about 30 bodyguards, she told me, for herself and her family. So she splits her time between Erbil, which is the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, and Baghdad, where she's in parliament. And when she's in Erbil, she tries to keep a low profile. I mean, this city is only 50 miles from Mosul, which is the current headquarters of ISIS in Iraq. But it is protected by the Peshmerga, the Kurdish armed forces. But, she said, of course, it's not 100% safe at all. And even though there hadn't been any incidents there recently, just after I left, a week after I left, there was a car bomb.
Now, she comes from a very well-educated family. 4 of her sisters are doctors. And the thing about the Islamic State group is it doesn't just kill women, it actually targets educated women.
Yes, it has been. The UN came out with a study about that quite recently, saying that a lot of well-educated women in public life are being targeted, and that's all faiths, that's not just the Yazidi women. So, for example, lawyers, teachers, doctors, politicians in particular, anybody who's elected to public office who's a woman, they particularly don't like.
Abigail Haworth, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And the story has already been published in the US edition of Marie Claire. Now, for a change of pace, and the Hollywood film 50 Shades of Grey has been released this week. It's based on a racy bestseller about a young woman's love affair with a man who indulges in violent sex. Claire Williams reports that how the movie is more than just whipping up a storm, as some argue that it promotes violence against women, while others have described it as a form of female empowerment.
Hold on, this is my story.
If Barbie starred in 50 Shades of Grey, she'd be the one in charge. This is 50 Shades of Pink, a parody of the film and novel, except here the roles are reversed. Christian Grey, the businessman who introduces violent sex to student Anastasia Steele, is being played by Barbie, the dominatrix.
My tastes are very singular. You wouldn't understand.
My tastes are very singular.
But in the original story, it's Gray's character that shares his fetish for handcuffs, blindfolds and whips with Anastasia, and it's come under fire for promoting violence towards women.
Enlighten me then.
British author Rosen Trevithick has just published 2 books in response to 50 Shades of Grey, which she says glamorises abuse.
It's fundamentally an abusive relationship. The S&M element of it doesn't happen within a consensual environment where they see each other as equals.
One of her books, No Shades of Grey, is a 6-word story.
Fancy some S&M? No thanks. Okay.
The book's proceeds are going to women's charities. But at the film's world premiere in Berlin, 50 Shades of Grey's author said critics have got it all wrong.
I think generally women like a really good passionate love story, and this is about a very strong young woman who doesn't realise she's a strong young woman, and a guy who's fundamentally very, very fragile, and she fixes him up. I mean, isn't that what women all want to do with their men, you know? So it's a fantasy, let's face it.
The book has sold 100 million copies, and the film is expected to be a blockbuster. But some women's groups in the United States are hoping to chip away at box office sales with the hashtag $50 not 50 shades. Anyone who tweets it pledges the $50 they might have spent on cinema tickets to women's charities.
And that's it for now. If you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page, that's France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments rolling in. We're going to leave you now with some music from Angelique Kidjo, one of the biggest African musicians on the world stage. A guest on our show recently, she's just won her 2nd Grammy for her album entitled Eve, a tribute to the women of the continent. So until our next program, bye for now.